Stop the cap.
Like I said in my previous video, these comments from white people um, under all of these far right individuals that have YouTube channels that are obviously backed by somebody. Somebody is facilitating their grift, whether it's Megyn Kelly or even Tim Pool, whoever these other the freaking there's quite a few white lawyer guys that it's amazing at how you can be a lawyer and get things completely wrong and just omit the truth, omit facts that are easily verifiable, and you can go online and you can look them up. People just running with narratives that have already been proven false. And they just, regardless of how much those lies have been refuted, people still they just run out there and just run with it. It's kind of like how Donald Trump goes up there and just says untruths and just keeps repeating them. And, his base, they believe it and they just keep going with it no matter how many times it gets smacked down. And that's what we're dealing with. I mean, I was looking at white people funny style before, but now, I mean, there's no ambiguity about it. I mean, we see them in 3D. We see their racism in 3D with this Carmelo Anthony case. And it's amazing to me. And as somebody who's pro Second Amendment in the two-way space, I mean, it is amazing to me the 180 when it comes to, the idea of any person having a weapon on them, in America. I mean, we went from concealed carry permits not being issued in 1986 to pretty much the majority of states in the United States currently right now are constitutional carry. There's more constitutional carry states or permitless carry, whatever you want to call it. I know those things aren't exactly the same, but I have one of those concealed carry apps to let me know, like when I'm driving through certain states, like whether I'm good or not. And the vast majority of the United States, I mean, you between Pennsylvania, like you could literally drive clear across this country from Pennsylvania to like Nevada. You can't go into California, but you can drive from Pennsylvania to Nevada, and not have to have a carry permit. You just literally just drive across it. And so the push and the fight, and again, the push is still going on. Like with Donald Trump, if you watch Mr. Guns and Gear, if you watch Coleon Noir, if you watch, who else? I mean, other than a lot of channels aren't necessarily political. They try not to be political. Four Boxes Diner. What other channels are like political about the Second Amendment? Liberty Doll, right? All these, they're constantly pushing for the Second Amendment. You should be able to protect yourself. You should be able to carry weapons however, wherever, you want to. They don't want the laws to be like California. They don't want the laws to be like New York. It's my God-given right. I mean, this is what they've been on, right? It's all about the Constitution. The Constitution says, this about the Second Amendment. NYSERPA v. Bruin, right? We got to respect the Constitution, right? And then there's the contradiction, where, on the flip side, you have Donald Trump that's literally ignoring the Supreme Court. We are in the middle of a constitutional crisis. He's literally ignoring the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court ruled 9-0 that you need to go down and get that man from, what is it, El Salvador, the man that was wrongfully deported, that is a U.S. citizen. You need to go down there and get that man. And Trump is just doing everything the bucket. That's a constitutional crisis because the Supreme Court doesn't have an enforcement arm. There's no Judge Dredd that's going to go, and be like, I am the law. Like it doesn't exist. The whole system is based off of checks and balances. And it seems like, I mean, I've never, the right to me right now is like a woman, because women do this. I mean, it's mind numbing the way that these people are just gung ho about the Constitution. until shit doesn't go their way. Then all of a sudden they want to toss it out. Like nobody can objectively like just sit back and watch, these people completely contradict themselves. I mean, that's what the people on the right say that they're about. Right? They say that they're about the Second Amendment. They say that they're about the Constitution. They say that they're about, following due process. Right? If there was a gun case and the city of New York tried to take somebody and lock them up and throw away the key because they had I don't know, they had an AR-15 or they had a gun that had a brace on it and they considered a short barrel rifle. I think there was a case recently with Bondi and Bondi threw it out, right? When it comes to things about the Second Amendment, oh man, they are by the book, by the T. The Constitution says this, the laws say this, right? This state is defying the federal courts, the federal law, right? It's all, and then they jump back and forth. We've seen this before. One minute it's states' rights. The next minute it's whatever the federal government says. So if they agree with the federal government, then the federal government should supersede the states, which the federal government supersedes the states by default. But then when it's something that the federal government is doing that they don't like, then it's states' rights, it's states' rights. It's states' rights, it's states' rights. And even the left gets kooky on this because, like, example, when it came to integrating the schools in the 1960s, the people on the right were like, states' rights, states' rights. Now, again, I'm not going to play that game where they're like, oh, it's the Democrats. It was the Dixiecrats of the South because Bull Connor was a Democrat, and all the racist white Southerners were Democrat. No, we're talking about white Southerners. The Republicans today, their great-grandfathers and grandfathers were Dixiecrats. They were Democrats, and they hold the same ideology that they have today back then, which is we don't like blacks. We want to maintain white supremacy, and that's how it's going to be. They have the same ideology. The party's flipped. I'm not going back and forth with people about that shit. None of these people moved. None of the people who were living in Georgia moved to New York and became New York Yankee liberals. The party's fucking switch. I get so sick and tired. There's always some idiot in the comment section that wants to write that fucking bullshit. That's why you got people in the South from Georgia who are like, heritage, not hate. Yeah, heritage, which means you and your people have been there since the goddamn 1700s. Which means that if I go back to the 1960s and the 1950s and the 1940s, your grandfather was what? A Democrat. And he held the same racist ideology that you do. Didn't want to integrate the schools, believed black people were second-class citizens, all that shit. So spare me on the bullshit. Anyway, so I'm saying it's so funny to watch this Karmelo Anthony case, unfold. And I mean the blatant in your face hypocrisy, of these white people. I mean, the whole case is like everything that they said is falling apart. I mean, first it started off, and I gotta give him credit. Let's give Jeffrey Charles Metcalf some credit because he is refusing to allow the people on the far right to make this about race. He's refusing to let that happen. Okay? His whole thing about his charges back in 2011, I only brought that up because he went on the news talking about what type of family was Karmelo Anthony raised in. Karmelo Anthony was raised in an intact, thriving, upper middle class, two-parent home. The Metcalfs twins are the boys that come from the broken home. You see, so I can give him an ounce of respect, for that. But I'm like, nah, you opened up the can of worms when it came to that shit. You opened up the can of worms. So yeah, black people are going to clap back when you come off, because that's the typical white people go to. Oh, how were they raised? Oh, it's good poor black kid. Oh, the black people are just they're just morally reprehensible, and they shouldn't be existing and among us. All that bullshit, right? And just completely ignoring the racist system that white people set up, to where disproportionately black people are poor and white people are well off. And then when black people are well off, they can't handle it. They talk all this shit about my hard work and my bootstraps and my personal responsibility. Then when black people are doing well, there's got to be some fraud in there. There's got to be some affirmative action, and they didn't earn that. They didn't they can't handle it. Again, black people, you need to have your own. You need to build your own. When black people did build their own, white people burn them out. And then when black people do have their own and establish their own, then white people come through jealous, with the, why that nigga got a piano? I ain't got no piano. This looks like reverse racism. I mean, these people are fucking psychotic. The only time that they're happy and content is when black people are dusty and beneath them. And what they really want is they want black people to be like just dusty beneath them, grovel at their feet, have no rights. I mean, this is literally what they want. They want black people to be like the ultimate fucking peasants, right? And the stupid idea is this belief that you're going to have black people that are going to be this marginalized group, and then they're going to be this well-behaved marginalized group. That doesn't even work in white people's fucking fantasies. When they come up with movies of resistance like freaking Snowpiercer, the freaking Hunger Games, what's another movie of a resistant movie? Hell, the Terminator movies. What's the other movie I'm thinking of? The Purge. What I mean? All these movies are about the marginalized people fighting against their oppression. What's the other movie that they got that is all on like Netflix or some shit like that? The Handmaid's Tale. I was diving into that, and because now like the white feminists are running around, talking about the Handmaid's Tale, because that's what a lot of these alt-right men seemingly want, and they're going to try to use the Bible and whatnot. It's kind of like the book, what was that book called? The 1984. And it was funny, is the Handmaid's Tale, I think, was written in like 1985, 1986, something like that. So, these people predicted a dystopian future before the dystopian future, came to be, like Carl Sagan style. But I mean, the hypocrisy is just, I just, and this goes back to something that Captain Solo said a long time ago, about, how a lot of the concepts of nationhood, they're just words. They're just words. I've said before, we live in a world where might makes right. It really doesn't matter what the fuck it says on that paper, because you see how, what is said on that paper doesn't really mean shit when people's emotions and feelings get into it, right? Like I said before, and black people really got to understand this. Okay, some of y'all really don't understand it. Y'all be running around with the sweet twinkle of white Jesus in your eye, talk about praying and holding hands, and like that's gonna make white people's heart grow like the fucking Grinch that stole Christmas. Okay, if it was the 1920s, and this happened in the 1920s, these white people that you see foaming at the mouth in Tim Pool's comment section and every other comment section that you see on YouTube, they would have went into the nearest black town and burnt it down, like they did Rosewood, like they did Slocum, Texas, like they did Jenkins County, Georgia, like they did, I forget the name of the town in Jenkins County, Georgia, but like they did in Elaine, Arkansas, like they did in Ocoee, Florida, like they did in Wilmington, North Carolina. Right, like they did, in the black section of town in Chicago, 1919, Omaha, Nebraska, Springfield, Illinois, 1903. Like this is what they do. White people engage in racialized domestic terrorism, and this is literally what they want to do. They want to be able to kill black people with impunity. They want to maintain and assert, their position and their dominance of white supremacy. They want to have a level of power that was extended to them, most notably in, let's say, the 1920s, right? Because real talk, they have no power because, in this system of the system of white supremacy is an illusion, because the reality is the system of white supremacy is still a class-based system. And the poor and working class whites don't get the power and the privilege of the white elites. They don't get the power and the privilege of the Donald Trumps, and the other people that are wealthy in the billionaire class. They don't get that. The only power that they really have, or has been extended to them historically, was essentially shitting on black people with impunity. That's the power that they had. And they want that, and the way that they see it, Donald Trump is up there, so this should be our time. We should be able to go in there and purge. We should be able to eliminate due process, rip up the Constitution. Again, what's funny, rip up the Constitution with the exception of the Second Amendment. We're going to keep the Second Amendment and we're going to keep the First Amendment because we love us some white Jesus and we want it to be America to become a theocracy. So we're going to keep the aspects of the Constitution that we like and then throw out all the other aspects that we don't like, the 13th and 14th Amendment and so on and so forth, right? We're going to throw that out, right? So they want the U.S. Constitution a la carte. I'll have some of this. I'll have some of that. Oh, no, I don't want any of that. You keep that. I'll take some of this. That's how they want it. Because that would allow them to operate and engage in white supremacy with, impunity, and, against black people. But, looking at the lies, I'm sitting there watching. I was watching Black Authority, and he put up the clip of Tim Pool, and I was like, oh, I didn't know Tim Pool did another video. So I go over there, I click on the Tim Pool's video, and he's got the lawyer, another one of these alt-right white supremacists that went up there and was foaming at the mouth and just saying things that, like, it's like, again, I don't know who gives these people their JD degrees. I have no clue. But anyway, they started to, because this is an irrefutable fact. And I said this previously. One thing that none of these white alt-right channels want to talk about is disparity of force. And the disparity of force is the fact that, according to the police report, Austin Metcalf is 5'9", 130 pounds. He weighs less than your average female age 17 to age 30. Where the Metcalf twins weigh more than your average 30-year-old at 6 foot 200 pounds. And then Tim Pool proceeded to go up there. Not only did he want to doubt what the weight of Carmelo Anthony was, I don't believe it. Yeah, because in other words, you're trying to refute this because that's going to play a huge factor, which is the size difference and the disparity of force between Carmelo and Austin. So then he goes, so in other words, he wants to make he wants to make Carmelo bigger, and he wants to make Austin smaller, so that there isn't a disparity of force when there is. Then on top of the fact, you throw in the fact that Hunter, Austin's brother, was there, and again, they were having this interaction, and that's apparently on video. But I'm like, if it was a 2-on-1, bam, you got two disparity of forces. I talked about that in my last video, right? So you have that fact that none of the people on the right want to talk about. Then you have the whole aspect of whether he used a proportional amount of force. I would say he used a proportional amount of force because of the fact, if we want to look at the letter of the law, because of the fact that he stabbed him once to stop the threat and then he ran away. Unlike Casey and Allison that stabbed the Spanish guy in the bathroom multiple times. He was stabbed multiple times. Carmelo Anthony stabbed him once, and then got away from the danger area. The other thing is that I've seen is this saying that Carmelo provoked the incident. Carmelo did not provoke the incident. That's coming out of the mouth of Austin himself. I mean, not Austin, Hunter himself, Austin's brother, that said that they went over to Carmelo. What I've seen is these right-wing platforms try to claim that Austin provoked it because he went for the knife and then said, punch me and see what happens, or hit me and see what happens. That is the equivalent of saying, step any closer and I'll shoot. Why you would then proceed to put your hands on a person or try to attack a person when they already feel threatened? There's already a size and weight disparity. They're already outnumbered. Why you would think, he ain't going to do nothing. Again, you don't get to dictate the how a person is going to respond, when they feel threatened. And again, it's not fear of death by itself. It's fear of death and great bodily harm. That is the phraseology. Fear of death or great bodily harm. Now, you can interpret that however you want to interpret that. But like I said, if a woman that's 140 pounds at 5'4", which weighs 10 pounds more than Carmelo Anthony, if she's being accosted by a 240-pound man and she pulls out her gun and shoots him, it's going to be self-defense because of that disparity of force. The other thing, the whole thing with the house, the house situation, it's like all these threats are being made to the family. White people did this. The people on the alt-right, they're the ones that made all of these threats. They're the ones that want to do things. I guarantee you there was like an envelope with a noose in it and some shit like that. And, oh, nigga, we gonna get you and all this shit. White people did all that. And so, Carmelo Anthony's father, he got to get his family up out of there. He's got 3 other kids that they got to go to school, all that stuff, right? And you got all these white people wanting to have a lynching. Of course he's going to get his family out of there and he's going to go somewhere else. But again, the issue that a lot of white people have is that here you have a black family, an intact black family with resources. This is the whole bullshit of when white people say that they want to see intact, thriving black families and they're tired of ghetto shit. Y'all get jealous of intact black families. You want to criticize broken black families, but then you get jealous and you feel some type of way about intact black families because intact black families have some sort of economic parity with you. That they're able to afford the same neighborhoods that many of the upper middle class white people can afford. And again, you got to remember that there's a lot of white people in this country currently right now that are struggling. And a lot of this bitching and fussing and anger and everything has a lot to do with that because their money's not right. And the last thing white people want to see when their money's not right are niggas doing well. That's a fact. So, that's another factor. What's another thing that's at play here? Oh, the whole Carmelo was trespassing. Oh my God. Like I'm just going over the comments I keep seeing. Carmelo was trespassing. First off, will the internet please stop calling it a tent? It's not a tent. It's a gazebo. A gazebo has no walls on 4 sides. It's a gazebo. It's not a tent. Okay? And white people are like, oh, he was trespassing. He was trespassing. Again, his friend EP, who knew him, who was a part of I believe, what was it? Memorial High School. Let me go in here. So where is this at? Yep, here we are. Anthony, this is from the police report. This is arrest report, Frisco Police Department. And I'm reading halfway through the paragraph. It says Anthony really had. Wait, where's it at? No one really thought Anthony had any weapons in his bag, and Austin proceeded to touch Anthony, and then Anthony told Austin to punch him and see what happens. A short time later, to touch. Where is it? A short time later, Austin grabbed Anthony to tell him to move, and Anthony pulled out what, and it's blacked out, recalled as a black knife and stabbed Austin once in the chest and then ran away. Austin began grabbing his chest and telling everyone to get help. Blanked out. It just says blanked out. Advised he did not know Anthony's name, but stated another Memorial Track member, EP, was friends with Anthony and he could identify Anthony. Described Anthony as a black male, skinny, with possibly a goatee, short, puffy hair, and wearing Sentinel High School clothing. This concluded my contact with, and then it's blacked out. Now, again, so Anthony, excuse me, yeah, so Karmelo Anthony, who ran track, had a friend from Memorial High School. When Anthony went to Centennial High School, according to this, because he was wearing, they're describing him, and he said he was wearing a Centennial High School clothing, right? So he has friends at Memorial High School. Pretty much, I don't know anybody who doesn't have a friend at your whatever the nearest local high school or local high schools or high schools in the same circuit. Again, track is not a contact sport. You're basically competing against yourself. And then not only that, when the report was given, because I had thought that it had stopped raining. No, it was raining cats and dogs when this happened. So basically, they were trying to push Karmelo Anthony out of the gazebo into the torrential downpour. That's what they were trying to do. Because when you scroll down further and you talk, and it goes and talks about the part where, where's it at? It talks about the part, blah, 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 blah. Because they basically went into like the locker room area. The police officer, they went into the locker room area. Where's this at? I asked him what happened. Wait, hold on. I'm going to see. Bleachers Memorial victim. Because he was talking about how Hunter, basically he was kind of hysterical and, he couldn't talk. And then eventually he gathered himself. This was all remembered when he talked. Hold on a second. It's somewhere in here, but basically, when they got there, it was torrential downpour. So that's why people were huddled up underneath the gazebo, because it was raining cats and dogs. It could not really talk in there. Wait. Here it is. So he talked about EP. So he went and talked to EP, which was Karmelo Anthony's friend, breathing heavily and crying due to the nature of the events. They were with the coaches on the field, and it was pouring down rain. We made the decision to relocate to the locker room just to the east to get out of the rain. Once in there, things calmed down a little bit. However, they were still hysterical and could not really talk. In there, I learned Hunter was the brother of the victim. So again, it raining so hard that they had to get out of the rain in order for this police officer to take down this information. I thought that the rain had already stopped when all this, and it was just kind of like damp everywhere. Like, no, It was raining cats and dogs. Going back to what the witness said, when he was talking about how even his own daughters were underneath the gazebo and whatnot. So the other thing, so I'm gonna get to the knife in a second. So so here you have two non-track players trying to tell Carmelo Anthony where he can and cannot go. You got white people running around these comment sections talking about who's trespassing as though, this is private property. Again, these people don't know anything about a track meet. They don't know anything about how athletes interact with each other. And again, how you gonna regulate how two black people, because EP is black, how you gonna regulate how two black people interact with each other? If I want to see my people from another school on another team, and I go over there and I'm kicking who the fuck are you to regulate? On top of the fact that you're a student, you're not the authority. You have no right to tell me where I can and cannot go. See, that's that whole we want to regulate niggas movement type shit. There's no legitimate reason why the Metcalf twins thought that they had the authority to tell Carmelo Anthony where he could and could not go. If they felt so strongly about it, why not get a coach to say something? Or why not get some sort of adult, a security guard, whoever? Get somebody who actually has the authority if you have so much of a problem with it. They didn't have the authority. No, this was just the Metcalf twins throwing their weight around. You know what I mean? Hey, we're 200 pounds. We're 6 foot. We can throw our weight around. What's this little nigga gonna do? So, people acting like, oh, he don't belong there, but his friend is underneath the tent and it's raining cats and dogs. You can, do with that what you will, but this whole idea that he was trespassing and he wasn't in some place that he wasn't supposed to be, wrong. And I'm so tired of these lazy people that don't go and just simply read the report. I mean, I was like, the first thing is right at the top of the damn thing. It's got all of Carmelo Anthony's information up there. And again, 5'9", 130 pounds. Then all I did was type in Austin Metcalf on the internet, football roster. Because again, if you played sports, I played sports, there's a football roster. And you go and you pull up the football roster and voila, you get the height and you get the weight, because recruiters and whatever school you're going to play for needs that. I don't know why Tim Pool's up there like, oh, I doubt that they were that big. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Like, do you not understand like the size of the incoming freshmen at universities that play for these, these top tier schools, these D1 schools? These guys are massive. Massive. Anyway, I mean, I'd argue that 100 and maybe not the running backs. The 100 backs might come in at like 150, 160 little cannonballs that run up through the middle, but linemen and everything else, 180, 200 pounds. By the time they get to their sophomore and junior year, you're talking about 210, 225. That's how big these guys are going to be. So, there's that. And what other things what other falsehoods, have been roaming around? I talked about the disparity of force. I talked about this argument about proportionality, of force. And I'm like, again, when you got that disparity of force, your idea of what you think is proportionality. Like, let me say this about the proportionality. Yeah, if somebody slaps you, okay, you can't just you can't pull out a gun and shoot them. Right? But if you're in a situation where you're a lot smaller and you're outnumbered, all bets are off. All bets are off at that point. Outnumbered and outsized, all bets are off. And again, that will hold up in court. Damn, there was something else I wanted to talk about the rumors that people are throwing around. I talked about the, bitching about, oh, they spent the money and, they bought this and bought that. And again, it's a black family that has money. Carmelo Anthony's father has resources. I mean, it's mind blowing at how much, like again, this is the fake and phoniness of like, oh, black people, you need to do better. Da 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 da. When black people are doing better, then they running and scrambling, trying to find some way to ghettoify, the intact black family. They're trying to find some way to bust up the black family because this scenario didn't play out the way that it did. If Carmelo Anthony came from a broken, impoverished black home with a single mom, they would use every bit of that to make a character assassination, say that he's a piece of shit, that he ain't shit, just so that they could railroad him. And the whole railroading, the whole thing is not working. It's not working now because everything that they wanted to say about the black family, or everything they wanted to say about the black family actually applies to the white family, actually applies to the Metcalf family. Of the two fathers, only one of them has a felony. Only one of them. And it ain't the Carmelo Anthony's parents. You know what I mean? It's just nuts. But anyway, what I really wanted to get into in this video is I wanted to get into the whole knife law, the Texas knife law. Now, I went and pulled up. Let me see if I can pull this up, and hopefully this video doesn't crash out, because sometimes it'll do that. Okay, so the Texas knife law. Let me get the actual code, because I want people just accusing me of what is this? Where is this at? What is the Texas knife law? Texas knife law is Texas Penal Code. I don't know, squiggly lines, 46.01. Any blade, hand instrument capable of inflicting serious bodily injury or death by cutting or stabbing. Location restrictive knife. A knife, so it describes what a knife is. And then it says location restrictive knife. A knife with a blade length over 5.5 inches. Prohibited locations for restricted knives. So Texas law only deals with restricted knives, and restricted knives are any knife that's over 5.5 inches at the blade. So think of a ruler, and then think of like just under 6 inches, and that's the length of the blade. So half of a ruler, which means that the knife overall, because it have a balanced blade, typically the hilt or the handle of the blade and the actual blade itself, right? So it's going to come out to like 11 and some change, inches, which is basically the length of a ruler. So you're talking about like a Crocodile Dundee knife, like that's not a knife. This was a knife, that type of knife, a fucking Bowie knife. Okay, you can go over there and watch, what's her name? Laura Backwoods. She got all the knives. She just posted a video not too long ago about a knife that was 5.5 inches. And I'm like, that's a big ass knife. Like a 5.5 inch knife is literally, it's like a fucking Rambo knife. Okay, a pocket knives typically are about 3.3 inches. And the reason why the 5.5 inches is so crucial is because it's like, I don't get it, because like 5.5 inches will definitely pierce all of your organs. You know what I mean? But a 3.5 inch knife will definitely pierce. Obviously, we see in the Carmelo Anthony stabbing Austin Metcalf, it pierced, his chest and went into his heart. So I don't get the idea why 5.5 inches is this magic number. I don't understand that. Like, what are you trying to cut? The aorta? Like, I don't understand why 5.5 inches is such a magical number when it comes to, these ideas of self-defense, or not self-defense, the ideas of the knife being a restricted knife. So anyway, going to the top. So let me go where I was asking AI these questions. So in Texas, so I'm reading here. In Texas, carrying a knife with a blade of 5.5 inches is generally legal for both adults and minors. No, excuse me, under. I'm sorry. In Texas, carrying a knife with a blade under 5.5 inches is generally legal for both adults and minors. These knives are not classified as location restricted knives and are not subject to specific prohibitions that apply to longer blades. Carrying knives under 5.5 inches on school property. Texas law specifically prohibits the possession of location restrictive knives, blades over 5.5 inches on school premises. There is no explicit statewide prohibition against carrying knives with blades under 5.5 inches on school property. Therefore, under state law, carrying such knives on school grounds is not a criminal offense. School district policies. While state law does not ban knives under 5.5 inches on school property, individual school districts have the authority to enforce their own policies regarding weapons. Many schools implement strict rules that prohibit students from bringing any knives, regardless of blade length, onto campus. Violating these policies can result in disciplinary actions such as suspension, expulsion, or placement in a disciplinary alternative education program, DAEP. Nothing criminal. In other words, the school can make a policy and the school deals with that internally, meaning you go to the principal's office, you go to the assistant principal's office, because typically the assistant principal is the disciplinarian, right? That's where you go. You don't go to jail. All these people are like, oh, you got a knife. Oh, it's criminal. Oh, it's premeditated. Oh, again, that's not Texas law, so your knife argument is out. You can have a knife less than 5.5 inches. Again, I think the Second Amendment people, the fucking, it's Texas. Y'all go hog hunting and shoot hogs from helicopters with 300 blackout, but yet you want to talk about, oh my God, he had a knife. I mean, get the fuck out of here. You all will go out there. You will hunt. I don't know how much type of elk hunting you have in Texas, but you all will go and hunt all type of animals, do all type of stuff. Even with the Metcalf twins, with freaking Jeffrey Metcalf, having the felony. I want to know who bought those AR-15s that the Metcalf boys have. Because if they're only 17, they're not old enough to buy those AR-15s. So who bought those AR-15s? The mother? You see what I'm saying? But ain't nobody going to look into that. Summary. So, legal status. Carrying a knife with a blade under 5.5 inches is legal in Texas, including for minors on school property. Not prohibited by state law, but may be restricted by school district policies. Again, not a criminal offense. Consequences. Violating school policies can lead to disciplinary measures even if no state law is broken. Then I asked, can you provide the actual knife law? And then they gave me the actual knife law, and I told y'all about that. What a knife is. A bladed hand instrument capable of inflicting serious bodily injury or death by cutting or stabbing. Location, restricted knife. A knife with a blade over 5.5 inches. Prohibited locations for location restrictive knives. Now, this is only going to apply to the knives that are over 5.5 inches. The damn Crocodile Dundee knives. Okay, per Texas code 46.03, it is illegal to intentionally, knowingly, or recklessly carry a location restrictive knife over 5.5 inches in certain places, including schools, educational institutions, on the premises, grounds, or or buildings where school sponsored activities are conducted, or in school transportation vehicles, polling places, government courts, racetracks, secure areas of airports within 100 feet of the place of execution, businesses deriving 51% of their income from alcohol, sporting events, correctional facilities, hospitals, amusement parks, places of religious worship. And then it says minors, location restricted knives under Texas Penal Code 4602. Individuals under 18 years old are prohibited from carrying a location restricted knife, meaning a knife over 5.5 inches. They are on their own premises or premises under the control. They are inside or directly, these are the exceptions, or directly en route to a motor vehicle or watercraft they own or control. They are under the direct supervision of a parent or a legal guardian. Violation can result in a Class A misdemeanor, which may include up to 1 year in jail and a fine up to $4,000. Summary: knives with blades 5.5 inches or shorter, generally legal to carry in most places for both adults and minors. Location restricted knives, blades over 5.5 inches, legal to carry in many public places for adults, but prohibited in specific locations listed above. Minors restricted for carrying location restricted knives except under specific conditions. Or more detail, it was this, or more detailed information. For more detailed information, you can refer to the full text of the law here, Texas Penal Code, Chapter 46. So you all can go and look at that. Yep, Penal Code, Title 10, Offenses Against Public Health, Safety, and Morals, Chapter 46, Weapons, 46.0.1, definitions in this chapter. Club means, so this is going to go basically through all sharp and blunt objects. Pretty lengthy, right? But that's the laws on knives. So we already know that the knife was not larger than 5.5 inches because in the police report, it says that the knife was partially open, which means it's a folding knife. And, pretty much folding knives are generally uniform in size, anywhere from 2 inches to like 3.5 inches tops. All right. So the knife argument is out. He could legally have and possess that knife, on top of, all the rhetoric that you hear about, it's my God-given right and everything else. Suddenly all that went out the door. But there was something else I was going to say that people were bringing up. Hold on. It'll come to me. Oh yeah. The whole, is on school property. It's not school property. And, because this was at a track meet that was sponsored by the school. But again, him having that knife is not against the law. It may be against school policy, but that is not a criminal offense. So if you're trying to base your whole, it's not self-defense because, he had a knife and he shouldn't have had a knife, that's going to fall flat. If your argument is, he didn't need to stab, Austin Metcalf, I'm like, well, you're going to have to get around the disparity of force and the disparity of number. You're going to have to get around that. So, once I'm telling you, once you go into, 2-on-1 and there's a huge size difference, good luck. Good luck trying to make that argument. It's freaking 5'9", 130 pounds. This is a frail dude, a little dude. That is not a big person. He might be, you're talking average height, but you're talking underweight. Like Tim Pool said, BMI, 19. 19. That's underweight. He's underweight. While the Metcalf twins are overweight. So again, I see the just preposterous arguments, the reaching that I see from these, white people that are on the far right is just insane. It's insane. And especially when you look at the what previously I thought was some degree of philosophical consistency. There was a guy on Tim Pool who called it out. That was just like blown away. Like, all these people say that they're constitutionalists and due process and everything else like that. And all of a sudden, with this case, it all just went out the window. And like I said, I feel, this is why I think that white people in America, are dangerous. They're dangerous to black people. They've always been dangerous to black people. But in particular, right now, they're dangerous to black people because, the economy's fucked up. They feel empowered because, they want America to go back to a time, and they mix the two together. They want America to go back to a time where not only are white people doing economically well, but white people are not confronted with dealing with things like diversity and equity and inclusion. They don't have to deal with, there being too many others. They don't have to walk down the street and smell the Indian spices, going up their nose. They don't have to hear, the freaking Jamaican music, when they walk out of their apartment. Pew, 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 pew. They don't want to hear none of that. They want America to be, this. It's like Wolfenstein. Like, that's what they want. Like when in Wolfenstein, the video game, when the Nazis took over America, right? Like that's literally what they want. You know what I'm saying? So, it just all goes out. And that's why I don't know what else to say about it, because I'm like telling black people, I'm like, you need to strap up. You need to prepare for these white people to crash out because they're overly emotional. Okay, they're running around with, I'm going to give these niggas a piece of my mind. And you don't know when the white person will just snap. And you got to be able to be ready to put them down like the rabid dogs that they are. That's just a fact, because there's no reasoning with these people. They're just blatantly lying and making shit up, and that pertains to this case. I'm like, how are you gonna attack it? He could have the knife. It's perfectly legal for him to have the knife. There's a disparity of force. Okay, he essentially had every right to be where he was. Right? It was raining cats and dogs. He's under the tent. You want to talk about the Metcalf family? Oh, they're great moral Christians and all the. Okay, so what are these good moral Christians doing, pushing somebody out of a gazebo, into the torrential rain downpour? Why would you do something like that? Why is it necessary to do something like that? Again, the Metcalf twins started it. Carmelo Anthony ended it. What else is there to discuss about the case? This idea, people are using the phrase bullying. Yeah, bullying in that moment. You know what I mean? But, that's the risk that you take. You go over to somebody that you don't know, and you think that you're going to put hands on them, and you think that you're going to basically assert yourself and dictate the terms of, where, they can and cannot go. You know what I mean? Everybody ain't going to just lay down for that shit. They, as black people like to say, oh, you found the right one. You was looking for it. You found it. You found the right one today. You found the right one. Shit. And especially, I'm proud, because I'm like, nah, especially with the, the idea of, black men coming out the suburbs, they weak. They weak. They don't respond to shit. I'm like, nah, Carmelo was not going for it. He wasn't going for it. The way that these white folks want to try to spin this shit. And again, they set the precedent. That's the crazy part. They set the precedent with freaking the freaking Daniel Penny. They set the precedent with Kyle Rittenhouse. They set the precedent with George Zimmerman. They set the precedent with, the McMichaels. I mean, all of them, whether you want to agree with the situations or not, they all immediately throw up self-defense if a black person gets killed. It's, wait till the trial, wait till the facts come out. But then when it comes to Carmelo Anthony, like, here they are foaming at the mouth. Foaming at the mouth. They got no smoke for the white boy that shot up his parents and then, wanted to take out Trump. They got no smoke for the white boy in Florida, that took his mom's service gun and then went to FSU and shot the school up. They got no smoke for Casey and Allison, right? That stabbed the boy, in the bathroom multiple times. Wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna stab him and try to get away like Carmelo Anthony, right? Because I'm just trying to neutralize the threat and then get out of here. No. So you stabbed him multiple times. You trying to make sure that he did. It wasn't like, oh, I poked him and got out of there. But they don't have all this anger is at, oh my God, a young black man killed a white man. They're going in Broly Dragon Ball Z rage mode. I'm like, this is nuts, man. This is just nuts. Just looking at the whole thing. I mean, they really want to be able to have a one-sided monopoly on violence, and they want to be able to kill black people with impunity. All this shit that they were talking, all this, the 2A, the Second Amendment, my constitutional rights, my God-given rights. I believe that people should be able to arm themselves and protect themselves and all that stuff. They believe all that. Only for white people. They do not believe that black people should ever be able to defend themselves against white people. That's what they believe. That furthers the reason why I want black people to be armed to the teeth. I want black people to be so armed that white people get offended. That they get offended. And you want to see, here's the crazy thing. For all the black people who want gun control, you want to see white people enact gun control like a motherfucker? Start arming yourselves and start getting your carry concealed permits and let them walk around and see too many black people that got their, concealed carry permits and exercising their Second Amendment right. Oh, they'll try to shut down the Second Amendment real quick. Oh, yeah. The more black people get armed, the more white people want the Second Amendment to be restricted. You got to play reverse psychology on these folks. Y'all be running around talking about, well, white people are racist, and these white racists, they keep attacking black people. So if us as black people, if we support the Democrats and support the party that advocates for gun control, then we'll be disarmed and they'll be disarmed too. You a damn fool. You a damn fool in a nation where, let's face it, people want to run around and they want to talk about race war. There's already a huge disparity of force between white people and black people. They outnumber us 5-1. There's 230 million of 35 million of them, and there's only freaking 42 million of us. So it's like 5.5 million. Times greater population. You know what I'm saying? And again, they already have a proven track record of burning us out, purging us, mass lynching us. And your stupid ass is sitting there talking about, I got Jesus on my side. I got God on my side. I got Yahshua on my side. I got the Most High on my side. You must be high if you sitting around talking about you don't need any goddamn protection in this country. You must be high. Not you serve the Most High. No, you must be high. So, I'm just saying, I'm looking at the whole thing. I'm like, yeah, man, y'all need to y'all need to recognize just how dangerous these people are. Because, see, thoughts lead to actions. And these people in these comment sections, these feral comment sections on YouTube are showing you what they really think. Some of them are so bold. I mean, they got their face up there. They got their whole government name up there. You know what I mean? And if you look, it was so crazy when you look at these thumbnails, right? These thumbnails are not white people, and they got swastikas on the wall, and they got the Klan outfit on the wall, or some shit like that. No, these are degular, plaid shirt wearing, pastel short wearing, at the beach, with their kids, looking white people. Okay, these white people look like regular Leave It to Beaver white people. And they're in the comment section foaming at the fucking mouth. Millions of comments. Between Meg and Cal, all these videos. Tim Pool, 350,000 views. Meg Kelly, 800,000 views, whatever. Like all these people got an obnoxious number of views. And these white people are just typing away in the comments section, foaming at the mouth, co-signing each other about things that aren't even true about the case and the whole situation. You know what I mean? Just assumptions of negative, and look at Carmelo Anthony's mom, and she's just lying through her teeth, and she's just a horrible person, and I'm like, you got all that because she's up there upset because of the way that her family's been attacked? She's the most evilest person in the world. Oh, okay. So she, both of those parents literally told Anthony, yeah, and when somebody comes at you, what you do is you take this knife that we bought for you, and then we go, and then you stab the white person. Right? That's what they're teaching. The crazy thing is the only people in this country that are going out here and buying their underage children weapons are white people. And who was that white boy that went and shot up the school? You will give your mentally ill children weapons, knowing that they have mental illness, knowing that they have issues. Police been to your house before and confiscated weapons, and your white ass will still go out there and buy weapons for your children. But you want to talk about how black people are the degenerates. Black people are the ones that have the problem. Black people are the ones that have no moral constitution. What? All this projecting is crazy. How pathological these people are. For me, like this is really, every time people will sit there and they'll say, do you think majority of white people are? Hell yeah, I think white people are racist. Hell yeah. And I'm going to point back to this case, and I'm going to point back to these comment sections every time a white person challenges me on, how much I think white people are racist. Mileage may vary. Some white people are foaming at the mouth racist. Other white people have an extremely strong bias. Okay, but these comments, this all of a sudden we're going to toss out due process of law. No, that tells me exactly what you're on. You want to have a monopoly of violence against black people, and you do not think that black people, should ever have the ability to defend ourselves against you. You're always going to try to spin it in some way where you're right and we're wrong. Regardless of how much we're in the right, it doesn't matter. You're a nigga. You're beneath me. You have what did Justin Tanning say? Right? The black man has no rights that the white man needs to respect, something like that. So, again, I don't know why. I don't know why black people sit around playing with these people. I do not know why. This is nothing to play with, because, right now we're in the middle of a constitutional crisis. You got Trump up there, he's gutting the country. Which I don't think Trump is going to, aside from his age, I don't think Trump is going to last, because right now he's doing things that a lot of people didn't think that he was going to do. They didn't vote him into office to do many of the things that he's doing, not even the business class. They can't even make decisions because of the erratic behavior, that he's doing. Okay, you can do a lot of things when, whatever political end of the spectrum you're on, but you can't do erratic things. You can't just do things just randomly. And this whole shit where he wants to get rid of the try to fire the person that's in charge of the Federal Reserve. I'm like, oh, now you fucking with the money changers, the money handlers. You fucking with them? You fucking with their shit? I'm like, okay. If you look at American history, all the presidents that have fucked with the money handlers, they didn't get too far. They had several attempts on their life. Many of them were successful. So I'm like, and like Trump has already had 2 attempts on his life. So I'm like, now you going in there, you wanna fuck with the money handlers. I'm like, okay. Yeah, okay. Because the Federal Reserve, there's nothing federal about the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve, it's a combination of federal government and private banks. It's kind of like outside of government. It's in its own unique space that is vague and nebulous and hard to describe if you actually sit there and you look at what the Federal Reserve really is. You're not, if you try to look up an answer, you're not going to get a clear answer. It's very mysterious. Okay. But yeah, I'm like, you start fucking with the money. He's on some. Trump is literally a rock star away of take grandpa's keys away. And take grandpa's keys away is going to start with Congress taking back the power on setting tariffs. Because that changed in the 1970s. I don't know if it was 1972, 73, something like that. And, no president, once they kind of hand over certain powers and shit like that, they usually don't take it back, or because, presidents have a lot of powers to do things, but it's unprecedented for them to do certain things. So there's no reason to really make a law or try to get it back, or, get certain powers or whatever back, because no president goes in there being a dickhead enough to do what Donald Trump does. He's the most unpresidential president that this country has ever had. And when it comes to the Democrats, people need to ask why people have an issue with the Democrats. They're not asking the right question. I saw something about, what's his name, Clyburn, and he's talking about, it's because of the media. That's why we're unpopular. No, it's not because of the media. It's because you aren't doing any of the things that the actual progressive people want you to do. You get your money from the same freaking billionaire class and corporate donors that the right gets their money from. And the right's the whole job, is freaking, divide, or not the right, but I'm saying the billionaire class's whole job is to divide people up. There is no middle ground. Eliminate the middle ground. That way you only have 2 factions, and you don't have to worry about there being any sort of coalition to oppose you, or, any sort of group that would put forth actual populist policies that would benefit the average person. Instead, you got people running around fighting over a cultural war, talking about how, things like this case, that's why it's being, elevated, to the max. Right? It's being elevated to the forefront, versus, other cases. Anyway, so that's my video. That's all I got to say. That's my video. SWP out. Don't forget to comment, share, like, and subscribe.
On the scene, diamond blingy whole screen. Check a boy Louis V. I'm so fresh and so clean. Stuff them bands in my jeans, slap them 30s in them things. Pull the trigger, let it sing. smoke a Russian cream.
Move. Hold on.
Yeah.
Hello?
Where you at?
Where we at? Oh, you want to know where I'm at? We outside!